A pleasant day to you, ma'am. I am Ramel B. Cañete, and for today, I'm going to report the Chapter 1 in Legal Aspects and Tourism and Hospitality Industry. So, the first is the learning objectives. The first objectives of this chapter is to identify the different kinds of laws relevant to the tourism, travel, and hospitality industry. Next is to enumerate important sources of tourism law. The next objectives is to explain the concept of tourism law. And last objectives is to give examples of applications of tourism law. But before that, what is law? So, law, it is the science of moral laws founded on rational nature of a man that governs his free activity for the realization of the individual and social ends of life under an aspect of mutual conditional dependence. Defined law also is defined as a rule of conduct, just and obligatory, promulgated by legitimate authority and common observance and benefit. Also, law in the dictionary is a binding custom or practice of a community. Law is a rule of conduct or action prescribed or formally recognized as binding or enforced by a controlling authority. So these are the what we call the lawyers. The whole body of such customs, practices, or rules which the court exists to uphold, interpret, and apply the law. So there are different kinds of law. There is substantive law, adjective law, general or public law, special or private laws. So what is substantive law? Substantive law is a law which creates, defines, and regulates rights, or which regulates the rights and duties which gives rise to a cause of action. The next is the adjective law, a law which provides a method of aiding and protecting certain rights. General or public law, a law which applies to all of the people of the state or to all particular class of persons in the state with equal force and obligation. So under the general or public law, we have what we call the criminal law, international law, and political law. So the criminal law is a law dealing with crime and punishment as well as their procedure for that purpose. International law is a body of rules or principles of actions governing the relations between states. And the last law under the general or public law is a political law. It is a law regulating the relations sustained by the inhabitants of a territory to sovereign. So the difference between criminal, international, and political law is very dali ra kayo nato mahibaw-an kay ang criminal is used for criminal purposes para sa mga taong mga nagkasala, while the international law is a law used by the government to for example makig-istorya sa laing country or like that. And political law is mao ni ang mga law nga gigamit sa atong mga politicians para sa pagprotekta sa ato ang territory. Special or private law, a law which relates to a particular persons or things of a class. Under this sector or under this law, we have the civil law, maritime law, and mercantile law. So what is civil law? Civil law is the mass of precepts which determines and regulates those relations of assistance, authority, and obedience existing among members of a family, and those which exist among members of a society for the protection of private interest. The maritime law. Maritime law is a law dealing with commerce by sea or sa mga pandagat, involving regulations of ships and harbors and status of seamen. So this that's why we have the kanang marina law, and we have the marino nga kanang to protect or to para magprotektar sa ato ang mga seaman and sa ato especially sa ato kanang or of course na kanang mga port authority nga na that's related na sila nga mukuan aning maritime law. Mercantile law is a law of commercial transactions derived from the law of merchant, which includes commercial paper, insurance, and other type of agency. Next is, what is tourism law? Tourism law is defined as a body of rules or principles of actions which deals with the regulation, authority, and obedience among members of a society involved in tourist and travel accommodation. So, after all these laws in relation to the tourism and hospitality industry, where does this law came from? So these are the sources of law relevant to the tourism, travel, and hospitality industry. So the sources are the Philippine Constitution, statutes or legislative enactments, administrative or executive orders, regulations and rulings, judicial decisions or jurisprudence, custom, and other sources. So the Philippine Constitution. So the Philippine Constitution is a fundamental law of the land, which all other law must conform. Statutes or legislative enactments, it is the written will of the legislative department rendered authentic by certain prescribed forms and solemnities, prescribing rules or action or civil conduct with respect to persons, things, or both. Administrative or executive orders, regulations, and ruling. These are issued by administrative officials under legislative authority. So, for examples of these are is the rules and regulations promulgated by the Secretary of Tourism to govern the accreditation of accommodations establishments such as hotels, inns, and many more. Judicial decisions or jurisprudence. These refer to the decision of the Supreme Court in interpreting the laws and constitution. Custom. It is a rule of conduct which is given groups of people has been followed for an appreciable time. And lastly, the other sources. These refer to a decision of foreign tribunals and opinions of textbook and writers. And that would be all for this chapter. Thank you and have a great day ahead.